time here is we're going to start off with a little preamble just to set the mood right. I'm going to read that in a minute. That'll take just a couple minutes. Then we'll have a kirtan, and Srila Prabhupada will lead that kirtan through a recording that he made in this very space in 1966. That lasts for about 10 minutes. After that, our guest speaker will speak to us about Srila Prabhupada, and we'll have a brief kirtan, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, following the talk. After that, prasadam will be served. Okay? This preamble I'm going to read to set the mood was written specifically for this program by His Holiness Satswarup Maharaj, one of Prabhupada's very first disciples. And he writes, 26 2nd Avenue is a unique pilgrimage site among all temples, outreach centers, and country farms within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada arrived in the U.S. in September of 1965, and for almost an entire year he received very little response, living as a guest in the home of Dr. Mishra in uptown Manhattan. Eventually a student found him a rented storefront on the Lower East Side, and when he moved there, his first serious students started regularly attending his kirtans and lectures. In September of 1966, on the day of Janmashtami, Srila Prabhupada initiated his first American disciples, and soon after, working with a lawyer, he officially incorporated the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, as a tax-exempt religious corporation. The Swami was very accessible to his disciples. From the first day of his arrival in the U.S., Prabhupada continued wearing his saffron sannyas dress and rubber pointy shoes. He lectured in this very storefront in the evenings of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. On Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, he stayed in his apartment, sitting at a low desk and conversing informally, answering questions from the devotees crowded in the room. Srila Prabhupada loved the 1966 period. Even at the end of his life in 1977 in Vrindavan, he reminisced about the time at 26 2nd Avenue. He recalled, quote, "Those were happy days. We were like a close family. All the devotees of ISKCON have a feeling of heartfelt gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for coming to 26 2nd Avenue and starting the Hare Krishna movement. Devotees should make a point of visiting the first ISKCON temple and take part in the weekly programs that are going on there now." So thank you all for doing just that this evening. So we will go now into the kirtan. This kirtan was recorded so early that the devotees did not know the Panchatantra Bhakti yet. So Prabhupada will chant that by himself for three times, and then he'll start the Mahamantra, and then we can all respond to his call.
Krishna Krishna, Krishna सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotee, all glories to the assembled devotee. Gaur Pramanandi.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami has quite an extensive biography, being around as long as he has. I'm talking about his con, not the planet. It's not a comment about his age. So I'm just going to maybe hit on a handful of bullet points. He was initiated at the age of 18 in 1968. He served as editor for almost all of Srila Prabhupada's books that were published during Prabhupada's lifetime. He was editor-in-chief of Back to Godhead magazine for most of the 90s and was assistant editor for years in addition to that. He travels the world extensively teaching and serving. His books include Vanity Karma, Ecclesiastes, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Meaning of Life, which won a gold award from the Independent Book Publishers Association, and Srila Prabhupada's Kirtan Standards. That's the official stuff. I just wanted to say from my own experience, from my own perspective, I think he's the personification of equanimity, and his detachment from the dealings of this world I find striking and unique. He's extremely self-aware too, which is something I really admire about him. Bookending his recent book, Prabhupada's Kirtan Standards, at the beginning, in his acknowledgments, he mentions that Urmila Mataji convinced him to take out some of the sarcasm from the book. So he removed some of the sarcasm. He's a very direct, straight shooter, which is, and at the end of the book, I think it's maybe the last page of the book, he says of himself, by my nature I'm not sweet of speech or gentle of heart, So he's asking for forgiveness for any offenses that he may have committed in the book, and he was just doing this to serve the devotees. And then he acknowledges that. And I just wanted to say that I've seen and experienced, so you might hear this stuff and you might think that he's all about the philosophy, and he's all about the philosophy, and I've seen and experienced the softness and the compassion of his heart. So we're really pleased to welcome back to Prabhupada Meditations His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj.
I think so.
Are we able to move this closer?
Does that seem good?
Yeah, sounds good, right? Back.
It's all right? Yeah. Om Gana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Miditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kodam Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantika Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sarivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Prarijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shagana Lolita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Privi Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you, Yadanath Prabhu. And thank you to all for coming. Let's maybe move it a little closer again. I keep receding. I think that should do it. you mentioned Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Prabhupada used to come. Our program was that in the evening we would do kirtan here in the storefront. And then Prabhupada would come down from his apartment and walk through this door, and we would all bow down, and Prabhupada would get up on his dais. Not this dais, this looks to me like it predates the time when I came in 1968. Our Vamadeva Prabhu, who was just here a couple of weeks ago, helping, I don't think renovate is the word. What's the opposite of renovate?
Right.
Retrobate.
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 Retrobate, yes. Helping retrobate the storefront. Built around that time when I came, 1968. A larger, a higher dais for Srila Prabhupada, blue cloth and gold trim. And Prabhupada would sit and lead kirtan and give class. And one day, Prabhupada came down like that, and the devotee who was leading what we call the first kirtan, Prabhupada would lead the second kirtan. The devotee who was leading the first kirtan was my older godbrother Jairam, who's still there in New Jersey. And he was leading, he had a little instrument, I don't know what it's called, this long with lots of strings, and you can either strum it or something.
Hammer dulcimer? Hammer dulcimer?
Maybe auto harp sounds like it, yeah. Maybe a little auto harp. And he was singing he had a sweet voice, so it was very nice, this auto harp, and he's singing. And he was singing Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari. And all the devotees we were all chanting and very sweet and nice. And Prabhupada came in, we all offered obeisances. And then everyone thought, well, something's not right here. And someone, maybe Jairam, said, that's not a bona fide mantra, Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, this is chanted by the Mayavadis. Very well-known chant in Hindu circles. You can hear it all over the internet. But Prabhupada said, this is chanted by the Mayavadis. Then he said, Sri Krishna Chaitanya you can chant. And no one really knew, as Jayadvaita said. We heard it was there on the first record album, but nobody knew how to lead. Prabhupada said, Hansaduta, you can. He also didn't know. So then Prabhupada himself, he asked for the mridanga. We had first mridangas at that time. Yeah. And he chanted. And that was, and then we all, that time, responded. And devotees who were there remembered that kirtan as being, well, our usual catchword is ecstatic, but it was a wonderful kirtan. And Prabhupada, just the whole experience, Prabhupada leading and playing the mridanga and chanting Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and all of us responding. So that was the first Sri Krishna Chaitanya, everyone into it, kirtan in ISKCON. Otherwise, Prabhupada would lead, he himself would lead the kirtan, and he would start very slow, and he would chant all of the Mangalacharna prayers. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jata, all the disciplic succession, all those prayers that you read, Prabhupada would chant. and quite slowly, meditatively. And we would just listen. And then Prabhupada would chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Hare Krishna, and everyone would respond. And then, as you heard on this recording, he would end the kirtan, just chanting Hare Krishna all the way till the end, and Jai Om Vishnupad Paramansa Parivam, like that. So that was our Monday, Wednesday, and Friday kirtan, and then Prabhupada would speak from Srimad Bhagavatam. Around the time I came, he was speaking on Prahlad Maharaj. He spoke on Prahlad Maharaj. It was an extended series, the whole story. I mean, Prabhupada always began, so Prahlad Maharaj, he's a 5-year-old boy, and his father was the greatest atheist. And then he would continue whatever the subject matter of the verses was. And maybe would leave time for questions, devotees would ask questions. And that was and then we would have a second kirtan. And there always had to be prasadam. At the kirtan, at least a little fruit cut up had to be there, something. And we would give Prabhupada some fruit, and it would be distributed, rest of the fruit, to all the devotees. Had to be prasadam. Nothing is complete without prasadam. I remember one time Prabhupada took a little apple. Prabhupada said, "This apple is Krishna's mercy on your country." In India we have got mango. About this picture also, Prabhupada liked it. He said, Krishna, consciousness. Krishna is there and Prabhupada's there, so it's Krishna and consciousness. Prabhupada said that to Radharani. As Satsvarup Maharaj mentioned, in the evenings we would go up to Prabhupada's apartment, and that was different. Here it was a formal lecture and kirtan, but when we go up to Prabhupada's apartment, it would just be informal. Prabhupada would sit in his room with the devotees, and devotees would ask, Prabhupada would say something. There was one sort of cherubic-looking devotee, Madan Mohan. Prabhupada said, "Who is this, Lord Buddha?" Because he looked, little like those chubby Lord Buddhas. So, who is this, Lord Buddha? So Prabhupada could joke with us. He could talk about different Krishna conscious topics. He could talk about British history. It would be like a little bewildering, what about Krishna? What about Krishna? What does this have to do with Krishna? But there's a famous walk where Yogeshwar Prabhu was there in Europe, and Prabhupada was talking about women and how I forget exactly which women were like which, but it's like French women have very beautiful faces, and some other women, they have very nice bodies, and the Bengali women, they have very attractive black hair. So the British men were attracted to them for their black hair. And then Yogeshwar Prabhu said that Krishna also has black hair. And Prabhupada said, "Why drag Krishna into this?" He said, "We're talking about sense gratification." So on those off nights, we would talk about so many things with Prabhupada. It's a small band of devotees who had gathered around Srila Prabhupada. And it was, well, what can we say? Such good fortune to be in Prabhupada's effulgent presence. And of course we were all, what did we know, what questions to ask, but something according to our little understanding. One time we were talking with Prabhupada. The devotees there, Brahmananda Prabhu was there in those days. Ray Rama was a stalwart devotee. He was one of the editors of BTG. Jairam was there, Vamandev was there, Madhusudan Prabhu was there, Nanda Kishore, early devotee. Kanchan Balai Dasi, Sudarshan Dasi. Like that. Things were a little going by that time. There were some, it wasn't just 5 or 7, but it was still quite a small band. Except on Sunday when this place would just absolutely fill up. Now things are demure on the Lower East Side, but back in those days it was just chock-a-block with hippies wandering about and stoned out of their minds. And everyone had a philosophy. I'm God and you're God and everything is God and LSD is God and God had incarnated out of his causeless mercy as LSD. So everybody had some idea, and they used to come to the storefront and be attracted. And on Sundays the storefront would just be totally packed. People would be stacked like paper cups. Just so many crowded here. And the feasts were fantastic. I talked about that before. How many wonderful preparations there would be. That it would be irresistible. But so that was the standard. Another time. So we were sitting with Prabhupada, and we'd ask questions, and he talked about this, and he talked about that. And then there was kind of there was nothing really to say. We were just looking at Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was there and looking at us. And then Brahmananda said, Prabhupada, you have so many loving children. And Prabhupada said, yes. And without botheration of wife. Prabhupada later would sometimes say that I had a few children, but now Krishna has given me so many. So many. I remember one time, the Vietnam War was going on, and there was a draft and a lottery system, so any young man could be drafted. And some of our devotees were either selected or about to be selected for the draft. And so some of the early devotees went off to India to, not to preach, but to escape the draft. Achyutananda Prabhu, Jayadvaita Prabhu, and not too many, one or two others. And there was nothing there in India organized. There was no International Society for Krishna Consciousness. That becomes another drama. But Prabhupada had some idea of doing something in India, and in any case, these devotees were not meant to be drafted. I can add there that Prabhupada, the first devotee who was officially exempted from the draft on account of being a devotee was Tosan Krishna Prabhu, Tom Allen. And it was notable, Prabhupada had written something in the reasons why he should be exempted. And it wasn't because we were against war or against that war. It was on the grounds that these boys were being trained as Brahmins. And therefore they were not meant for fighting. You didn't pitch it in some way. This is why. They're being trained as Brahmins, so they're not meant for fighting. And it worked. So San Krishna Prabhu was exempted, and I guess after that others were similarly exempted. But before then, the Achyutananda had gone to India. I think he'd already gone by the time, yes, I would have remembered if he were still here. He'd gone to India. There was another devotee, Jayadvaita, and he came down from Prabhupada's apartment and said that Prabhupada had embraced him. And I thought, I was very new, I thought, yeah, that spiritual life, there's always embraces going on. And then, it was only later that, well, that was quite extraordinary that Srila Prabhupada had embraced that devotee. In Krishna book, it's when Sudama Brahman came to Dwarka, and Krishna welcomed him and embraced him and sat him down on his own bed and worshipped him. And the women in the palace were surprised because Krishna never embraced anyone but Rukmini and his elder brother Balaram. So it was extraordinary. Why is he embracing this poor and unkempt Brahmin? So Prabhupada it wasn't that kind of spiritual society where Prabhupada went around hugging everyone and embracing everyone. Not at all. That came later from other quarters. But Prabhupada was grave and serious. But when I heard he'd embraced Jayadvaita, it was, well, sure. But it was wonderful, and Jayadvaita was all glowing from that. I remember one time I offered obeisances to Prabhupada upstairs, and Prabhupada had just patted me on the back, and just that was, my goodness, enough to last you tonight till 2025 and beyond. To say nothing of being embraced by Prabhupada in that way. I can stop and take some questions if you have some.
Sorry, good to see you again. What year was that, if I may ask? 68?
68. Prabhupada had gone back to India. He'd had that heart attack and tried, going to this place or that place to recover his health, and it didn't work. And so he returned to India, and there was a very a moving article about it published in Back to Godhead, and you see the picture of Prabhupada at the airport surrounded by the New York devotees who didn't know if he was going to come back. And you can see their expressions of, well, I won't say, but you see their expressions, how they're feeling with Prabhupada leaving. And the signs there are India. So Prabhupada goes back to India and does recover his health. And then he came back to America via the West Coast. I remember he first came to San Francisco. We didn't have Los Angeles as a serious place back then. wasn't much of anything, but I think we did have a center there by that time. Maybe. But San Francisco was the place. So Prabhupada had come to San Francisco, and there was a television show. Prabhupada was on a show with Mukunda Maharaj and all the devotees, Janaki and whoever else was there in San Francisco. And the devotees knew that this show was going to be aired, so they borrowed a television. There was no television here. They borrowed, in fact, 2 televisions, and they put one in Prabhupada's room and another in his sitting room upstairs. And then they were going back and forth to see which had better reception. You know, back in the days of black and white and gray television, and the devotees all knew, or most of the devotees knew everyone who was there. They'd been in New York, or they'd mostly been in New York. So there's Mukunda, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there was Prabhupada, and I remember they had a close-up of Prabhupada's hands playing kartals with absolute precision, and just as if every motion was perfectly measured. It was like that when Prabhupada did things, he was perfectly measured. So they had close-up of his hands and pictures of Prabhupada chanting. And the devotees were rolling on the floor and just all beside themselves, just seeing Prabhupada and seeing the devotees. And then Prabhupada came, flew from San Francisco to New York, and there was a big tumultuous reception. Those days were special. Even I joined in the interim. Prabhupada had gone back to India and not yet returned. So I joined in the middle. And people ask, how did you meet Prabhupada? Like, was it on the street like Hayagriva, or was he just? And it's pretty simple. I joined ISKCON, and that's how I met Prabhupada. I was already here. Yeah, so 1968. That's the long answer to your question.
And they kept an apartment upstairs in 1968.
Yeah, the story is that, as you know, Prabhupada was in this loft, and this young man went crazy, and Prabhupada got in touch with Mukunda Maharaj, and get me out of here. And then Allen Ginsberg had written in a foreword to the original small Bhagavad Gita as it is, that speaking about Prabhupada, what kindness to choose to tend to the Lower East Side. The uptown Swamis, as we used to call them, were up in the Upper East Side. But Prabhupada, what kindness to tend to the Lower East Side, this crazy place of hippies and winos. But the actual story was that Prabhupada had said to Mukunda, please find me a place in a respectable neighborhood. So here you are.
Lower East.
Is there another question? Yes.
George, can you confirm it's the second floor apartment that's just up there?
Yeah, my memories are not the greatest, so anything I confirm at this point
Needs confirmation.
needs further confirmation, but as I remember, it was the second floor.
Yeah, 3 windows.
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, when I came, Prabhupada's servants were Govindasi and Gorsundar. And Govindadasi and somebody else, they had, I forget who else was, maybe it was just Gorsundar. Anyway, they had a system, green, a green cardboard and a red cardboard, you can come, not come. And they were always so concerned about Prabhupada's health. So they didn't want Prabhupada to play mridanga, and they didn't want Prabhupada to do this. and they were carefully regulating his diet. Prabhupada called them the starvation committee. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You told some stories of, you told some stories about Prabhupada that I haven't heard before, and so I'm very grateful to you. And they were stories that showed Prabhupada in a playful, human
Mm.
light, and yeah, I'm just curious to hear your reflections on seeing the spiritual master Prabhupada both as that person who represents God, and like most of the pictures we have of Prabhupada, he's like that, sitting very formally
Yeah,
on the
Prabhupada said
asasana.
a spiritual master should be, a Swami should be grave, Prabhupada said. So the pictures are like that.
But then this other side that we don't see or hear about, and if you could just speak a little bit more. I haven't formulated a clear question, but
Yeah, but I think I get we get the sort of official Prabhupada who's sitting on an asana or someplace, and he's very sober, and he's delivering the absolute truth, and he's stern, and that's all there. Prabhupada was serious. That's another pastime here. Along with the men, there were two ladies at that time, Balai Dasi and Himavati. And then there were three high school girls who would come. Kanchan Bala, Sudarshan Dasi, four girls, Indira and Ekayani, two sisters. They would come they were going to school, the high school girls, so they would come on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And some of the girls were a little sentimental, so Prabhupada would do something and they would go, oh. And Prabhupada would drink some water in his characteristic way, and they say, oh. Oh, Swamiji. It was like that. And Prabhupada, after enough of that, gave the instruction, tell them they should be a little grave. So Prabhupada was grave, but he also liked to be, as you say, he was human, although Navarcha Bhuti Suyeta, one should not think the spiritual master an ordinary human being, but he had, as you said, this human side to him. So he could joke, he could be sarcastic, he could talk about anything that he wanted to talk about, and that was all another attractive side to Srila Prabhupada, an endearing side to Srila Prabhupada. And that continued. Later in his kind, of course, Prabhupada became so much less accessible. To get to see Prabhupada, you had to, work your way through. You had to be in the midst of hundreds or thousands of people seeing him, or you had to work your way up through some sort of hierarchy to get to meet with Prabhupada. So he was much less accessible to us ordinary folks. But those who went to India, they got that same kind of association with Prabhupada. We read in Giriraj Maharaj's book and in other recollections how Prabhupada would be so personally accessible to the devotees who made that sacrifice of going to India. There was no, it wasn't a luxury place. We didn't have a gorgeous hotel in Juhu or a big campus in Mayapur. There was nothing really, nothing certain. But and there was a lot of austerity when you read about how the devotees were living. But on the other side, they were compensated because they had Srila Prabhupada's very intimate association. He knew them, he encouraged them or disciplined them as needed. So that continued. And even later with his personal retinue, his people who were close to him, Prabhupada could, they could joke, he could express personal concern for small things. Very, yeah, it's not just the official. Both sides were there.
Like when I see documentary, I never seen before. That showed me the documentary that of Prabhupada. It paints. You could see, you could feel for how funny he was and how beautiful smile he had.
Yeah.
Such a difference than pictures that you see of him.
Yes.
You can really see his.
As Sally Agarwal said, when he'd smile, it would be oceanic.
Yeah. It was very kind of discovery for me to see that. That was kind of a very big discovery for me to see that documentary, because you can really get a sense for him, how different sides of him.
Yeah. Prabhupada said about Krishna, he's not one-sided, he's all-sided. So Prabhupada was like that also, he wasn't just one-sided. So many different sides to his personality. Yes.
Why should Why? Why?
I think
That's for online.
That's for the camera.
Oh, pardon. Oh my gosh. Why should a Swami be grave?
Why should a Swami be grave? Because he has some very important business to do. If you send an ambassador, say that America sends an ambassador to France for some high-level talks, you don't expect the ambassador to be sort of goofing off with the other attendees. Serious business. So for that serious business, the ambassador may say something informal just to cut the ice a little bit, but he knows that he's come on a responsible mission, and so it's appropriate for him to be grave. So Prabhupada was like that too. He said here one time, he came here from Hawaii, and he said that the local newspaper, the Honolulu Advertiser, had published an article. The Swami is a small man, but he's got a very big message. Mm-hmm. And Prabhupada liked that. The message was big. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Oh, Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai. Thank you very much for that intimate glimpse into the early days. We really value having you here, especially since you do go that far back. It's much appreciated. So now we'll move into Kirtan. Shripad, would you mind leading us in a brief, like 5 to 10 minute Kirtan?
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, come on up. And then prasadam will be served immediately following Kirtan.
Books, Maharaj's books.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a book table set up in the back, and both of the Maharaj's books that I mentioned are there. Vanity Karma and Srila Prabhupada's Kirtan Standards. So please thumb through them, and they're for sale for you, so check it out. I've read both of them. They're both excellent books. Vanity Karma reflects on the book of Ecclesiastes from the Bible, and he puts the Vaishnava bhakti perspective on that somewhat perplexing chapter in the Bible, and he clarifies it according to the Vedic understanding. And the Kirtan Standard books kind of speaks for itself. It's like how Maharaj sees that in some areas there's a potential to really get away from what Prabhupada wanted kirtan to be. And he's not didactic about it, he simply conveys what Prabhupada said about kirtan and what he heard that Prabhupada wanted in kirtan. Not just himself, but he includes other perspectives on that from other Prabhupada disciples. So I recommend them both, and you can look at those. They are for sale. Okay.
Cash and card both are acceptable.
Yes, cash and card
Cards.
both accepted. And I'll explain that second out of it.
Hare
Hare
Oh, Srila Prabhupada ki jai! Thank you, Sri Prahlad. Thank you, Jayadvaita Maharaj. Thank you all
Thank you.
for coming. Rashad is served in a moment. I also did want to mention that 26 Second Avenue, we don't own this space. We rent it, so we run on donations. We have some merchandise in the back, t-shirts, a couple different designs, all sizes, cash, credit cards are accepted. There are tote bags and also caps. 26 Second Avenue caps and tote bags all available. If you can only buy one thing, either Second Avenue merchandise or one of Maharaj's books, I recommend one of Maharaj's books. But then come back again and then buy some merchandise. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.